Let's talk economic security. What does that mean to you, and what do we mean by it in this video? Well, let's jump to the point. Economic insecurity is an individual's or household's degree of vulnerability to economic loss. This refers to three elements: the probability of a shock, the negative consequences from a shock, and the protection to prevent or cover the impact of that shock. So, with that said, is economic security improving? Surely in these modern times, our ability to track and measure people's well-being has improved, and as a result, we have been able to adjust our policies differently, right? Well, let's have a look. Is economic security eroding? Back in the 1990s, the World Bank conducted a survey of around 60,000 people living in poverty across 60 countries. It was a big project known as Voices of the Poor. Very to the point. What was asked was relatively simple. What aspect of your life gives you the most hardship? Now, beyond the responses of being stuck on a low income, another common theme was the sense of economic insecurity. To some, this may sound like the same thing, but I assure you it really isn't. Economic insecurity is conceptually different to poverty. It affects a much larger share of the population than poverty does, and being in a high-income country or household doesn't save you either. If you're in Western Europe or in the USA, you're probably familiar with areas of your country going through a phase of deindustrialization. And if your nation is without an adequate system of social protection or policies that ensure near full employment, these areas probably experienced high levels of insecurity. Jobs were disappearing, asset prices were falling, and crime was increasing. But most of you are younger, so just think back to the 2008 crisis. Between Q4 of 2008 and Q1 of 2010, more than 12 million people lost their jobs in OECD countries, a forum that is home to predominantly rich nations. This saw the young graduates worried about finding a job, let alone one relevant to their studies or talents. And for those in nations where university education is financed by student loans, they were also concerned about how they would pay their debt. Older members of society were concerned about their asset prices. Will they be able to retire? Will this prolong their already 40-year working life? All these issues are related to insecurity, and in many cases economic insecurity. And given the discontent that rich nations of the world have voiced through their politics, and the voice of the poor seen in lower income countries in the World Bank survey, it's never been more apparent that economic insecurity is an issue that economics is failing to highlight, and governments are failing to listen to. So, let's recap. Economic insecurity is based on the interaction of economic shocks, impacts, and buffers. Any change in one of these three factors can change the level of economic insecurity. And over the last few decades, a lot has changed, most notably in the structure of the economy and economic policies from governments. Take, for example, financial globalization, the idea that more countries could borrow in the bad times and repay in the good times is great. But this has increased economic volatility, with capital flows typically being pro rather than counter-cyclical. This therefore has resulted in some cases with more economic shocks, and in other cases larger economic impacts, increasing economic insecurity. What about digitalization? This has increased consumer choice and given us new services. But what about all the jobs that have disappeared? And all the jobs still to be digitalized and automated? This may be an overall good thing for the economy, and jobs will be created elsewhere. But what about the economic security for those who are left behind? Will they be the ones sliding into those new jobs or falling into economic difficulty? The same goes for the increased flexibility in the labour market. which has made it easier for employees to either climb up and slide down the socio-economic ladder, which, when coupled with the growing income inequality, has also resulted in a larger fall for those coming down the ladder, leading to a higher level of economic insecurity, except for in the nations where unemployment benefits were raised and policies to help workers find new jobs quickly were introduced. But wait, you might be thinking, in my country we have social programs that help those deal with economic shocks and their impacts, like the ones you just mentioned. Yeah, great response. This is true. Many nations have social programs, but also many nations are struggling to keep up with the necessary reforms to maintain the same levels of economic insecurity, let alone reduce them. And in some cases, certain issues like pensions have moved in a different direction, where the shift from defined benefit to defined contribution programs has moved the risk from corporations to individuals, even though corporations are, generally speaking, in a better position to deal with the risks. This was seen in the UK, where a report published by the EU in 2018 showed evidence that the UK's partial privatisation of public pensions may have led to men earning the average wage receiving 52% less in pension benefits. So, if economic insecurity is such a problem, then what are we doing about it? Some of you viewers might have thought of a solution already. Insurance. That's what it's there for, right? Pay a little throughout the good times to protect you in the bad times. The insurance market should do its thing. Well, yes and no. We all love a grey answer. It is true that the insurance market reduces economic insecurity. This is a fact. Many people and businesses have been given peace of mind thanks to their insurance policies. But the insurance market is not free from market failures. And in some very important areas of life, insurance fails to address the needs of the market and therefore the people. These market failures are exactly why social protection systems were created. Remember, in the USA, despite its wealth and developed insurance markets, one of the main reasons for its citizens falling into personal bankruptcy is because of a prolonged illness or expensive health expenditures. Is the market providing economic security for these people? So, what's the solution then? Well, in short, the solution depends on the country you're in, since every nation already has varying degrees of social programs and health and work policies that attempt to reduce economic insecurity. In many ways, the solution is to providing a dashboard of indicators so that policymakers and civil society can be more aware about the problems and make the policy changes necessary for the economic shock that hits society, as to reduce the impact of the economic shock or increase the buffer so that fewer people fall through the cracks. Particularly in the last 15 years, a lot more work is being done in this area, and a focus on re-evaluating our current economic indicators, particularly GDP, need to be seen through a dashboard rather than a single indicator that is capable of providing insights into how well society is really doing economically. And if successful, we should all be able to live a less stressful and less volatile economic life. Thanks for watching. Drop a pineapple emoji if you made it this far in the video, and I want to hear from you. Do you think economic insecurity has been getting worse in your country? And if so, why? Don't forget to subscribe and like this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Otherwise, take care. Bye.